I believe the tax code is not fair, but it is your opportunity. If you're a business owner or investor, the code is really made for you.
Well, hey, welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. You know, the tax code isn't fair, but that's your opportunity as a business owner. And this is the perspective that Catrina Craft brings as the CPA and tax strategist behind some of the most profitable coaches, consultants, and creators in the industry. After climbing out of $100,000 in debt and losing 80% of her income overnight, she rebuilt her business by using the same advanced tax strategies and wealth building tactics that the top 2% of the wealthiest rely on to protect and multiply their money. Now she teaches clients to do the same through her Craft Money Map system. She helps high-earning entrepreneurs cut taxes by up to 25% and boost profits by 20%. Strategies that most accountants won't even talk about. Catrina pulls back the curtain on what the ultra wealthy know, how proactive tax strategy lets you keep more, grow faster, and build wealth. And you will walk away with the practical insights on entity structuring, overlooked deductions, and income planning that scales. And as always, dear listener, make sure that you are taking full responsibility for your decisions and consulting a professional. We are sharing for educational purposes only. Hello and welcome, Catrina. I'm super excited that you're here.
Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate you inviting me.
Oh my gosh, my absolute pleasure. So, you know, you and I were chatting before we got into the episode about like the number one thing that you wish that people really understood, especially as entrepreneurs. You want to just share that with everybody now that we're live? Like, what is that one thing?
One of the things that I feel like is most important is that you understand that you're making more money. That could also mean you're paying more taxes, unless you have a good strategy and you understand how to use the tax code to your benefit. Because like Amanda said, I believe the tax code is not fair, but it is your opportunity. If you're a business owner or an investor, the code is really made for you.
All right. So when we were preparing for this episode, Catrina, you know, we were breaking a little bit of bread and chatting about what you wish that entrepreneurs really knew. So do you mind just sharing that with our listeners? Like, what do they not realize when it comes to wealth strategy and tax planning?
The tax code can really benefit you as a business owner, because what I've seen and what I've helped clients with is develop a strategy so that they can use the code. They have more freedom. Instead of worrying about always getting more sales, if you're trying to impact your bottom line, it may be in taxes, because taxes is your biggest expense, you know, in your business. That's one of your biggest expenses. But we work with clients so we can reduce that, and you're not overpaying. I found that most entrepreneurs, when they come to me, they're overpaying in taxes because they do not have a strategy, and they don't realize that they can use the code and get those deductions that are going to allow the IRS sometimes to pay for some of your lifestyle. That's so important, and people don't see it like that.
Yeah. That's so interesting. When you start working with someone and you're helping them, you know, I always am reminded of that saying, like, the best time to have a map is before you go into the woods, you know? So like when you're first working with an entrepreneur who's maybe newer to tax planning or wealth strategy, because, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs, when we're first starting out, it's like, can I make this business work? And that's like your full fixation. But then, you know, it makes so much sense to connect with someone who understands the wealth strategy and the tax planning for success before you're successful, right? So like when you're working with someone, what do you find are some of the first things that you direct their attention towards?
People ask me a lot of times, like, when should I find this tax strategist? When should I find a CPA? And I say, when you are thinking about starting your business. The reason is I found many people have been set up improperly that don't benefit them in the long run. So you're thinking you're doing a good job, and you go to an attorney and he just files an LLC for you. But most people don't know an LLC can be taxed as a corporation, a S corp, a partnership or a sole proprietorship. So when people say, I have an LLC, they've just heard that. And then when I ask, well, how are you taxed? And they're like, huh? I don't know. So it's important when you form your business and you're working with an attorney, you need to work with a CPA too, because you need to know from the tax perspective, and all CPAs are not tax strategists. So I want to make sure you work with a tax strategist, and it's important to work with someone that knows your industry. That's very important because they'll understand what type of tax deductions are ordinary and necessary in your business. And that's how the IRS defines if something is a deduction. It has to be ordinary and necessary. And if you work with someone that understands that in your business, they understand the codes, and then they talk about your goals. Because if you're planning to sell your company, you need to be set up in a whole different structure. Also, I'm working with asset protection attorneys because you want to protect what you're growing. You protect your assets. So if you set up your company and it has your name on it, you're already exposed. So you need to start from the beginning and make sure you're doing this right.
So good. So good. I know a lot of people don't. So they always say that, the best time to plant an oak tree was 20 years ago. And then the next best time is, of course, today. So let's talk to that entrepreneur that got rocking and rolling. They were bootstrapping, they were watching their pennies, and now they're tuning in and realizing, oh no, I didn't have that consultation. I didn't do that. Are they forever and always screwed, or is there something they can do at this point?
No, there is opportunity to fix what you've done if you did not start properly. So working with a tax strategist, we're going to look at, okay, what are your goals? And we're going to say, let's look at your tax returns, because you may not know. You can go back 3 years and amend tax returns. So maybe you've missed deductions. And I found that I've worked with clients and been able to go back 3 years and find them thousands of dollars in money that's sitting there. So when I say that it's not all about sales, it's also about the bottom line and reducing how much you're paying in your taxes. So it's not too late. We can, like I said, amend, or we may have to change your structure. So if you're LLC filing as a sole proprietorship, you may need to be an S corp. That's an election that you can make. You may want to look at have you hired your children or your family members. That may be a deduction that you've missed in the past. So it's not too late to start doing things right that's going to maximize your tax savings.
Absolutely. As a high performance coach, I'm often having that very conversation with people where it's like, look, the guilt or the shame about not seeking the advice because you just now found out, like, let that go. It's okay to work with a pro. And, I think a lot of people are pretty hesitant to work with pros sometimes because they're not sure if they can trust a person. They're not sure if they, are even speaking to the right person. What would you tell that person? Like, if they're really looking, obviously you're a pro. So, what are you hoping that they're asking before they hand over the keys to their books and, all of these things? Because I think it does scare some people.
It does. And I want to tell you, a pro is not ChatGPT. So let's start there. I put a tax code.
Okay, she said it, folks. You can't ChatGPT everything, Like, good.
Exactly.
Gracious. Things we have to say that we shouldn't have to say, right?
Right, but it's true. I put a tax code strategy in ChatGPT and it missed $40,000. I was like, okay, because you have to know the prompts. You have to know what to ask. And most entrepreneurs, if you're not studying taxes, you don't know the questions to ask. So, and you don't know to tell ChatGPT, okay, you're not telling me the right story. Dig a little deeper. And I've seen that where I'm like, that's not the right form. And then they'll say, you're right, Catrina. Let me dig a little deeper. So, ChatGPT.
My gosh, I know. It's like that family member that's like, oops, you busted me in a lie. And it's like, no, you got it wrong, right? Yes. And they see right there, ChatGPT can make mistakes.
Exactly. I see people seeing things on social media and coming to me and saying, someone told me. Please check your references of who's telling you what. Make sure they do have the education, the knowledge. I have over 20 years of knowledge in tax codes and over 1,000 tax strategies in my database just from working. Make sure you're working with someone that knows your industry, has experience and has references. I would say that because it is important to start right, to work with the right person, because if you don't, it could cost you more than what you're paying in the fees.
Absolutely. Like this is something to take seriously, and to shop around. And I think what's so interesting about you is you made the decision to specialize in working with coaches and consultants. Can you tell me a little bit of your personal why? Why do you love working in this industry?
Well, I'm a creator, I'm an advisor, I'm a consultant, and I saw that this industry, especially coaches, is growing. And a lot of people are hanging their shingles out and saying they're a coach, but they're not operating as a business. This is a business. It's not something you're doing for fun. If you set up a business, operate as a business. Have your meeting minutes. Have your tax strategy. Have your plan and your numbers. It's important to work with someone. Just like you're a coach and someone that you're working with, you're helping them. As an advisor and a coach related to tax strategies, I'm that same person for you. I'm educating you and empowering you to learn these skills that you have not been trained on.
Absolutely. There's a saying in our space that anybody can call themselves a coach. And I think that that's really, really true. But if you want to be operating at that next level, you got to pro up, right? And that means owning your professional genius and the thing that you do, but it's also engaging the lawyers, engaging the accountants, and managing your compliance and having a calendar where you're doing all of those kinds of things because you are a professional. And goodness, we could go all over the place with that, making sure you've got your insurance in play and all of those kinds of things. I think the thing that is so deceptive, why am I saying that word? Whatever, but it really is, it's deceptively simple to become a coach or to start a coaching business. But the truth is any business has a bare minimum standard before it can actually be considered a business, right? And there's certain, operational considerations. Now, there was something you listed and rhymed off that I know that a lot of our listeners don't even realize. Can you talk to us about the meeting minutes? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so in certain types of entity structures, you have to have meeting minutes in order to be compliant with your state and the IRS. So you need to have minutes, and that's minutes that shows what you've agreed to in your business. You're having a board meeting, so you can have on your board your friends, your family members, as well as spouses or children. And you're having these meetings and you're making decisions and you're documenting these minutes, and it's required. The good thing is your minutes and your meeting can be done in a place that you would think it is a vacation, but really it's not. You're going and traveling, flying first class if you want to, staying at a luxury vacation spot, but now you're having a meeting and it has to be 4 hours during the day. So if you're traveling, say from Dallas, where I am, to Florida, that 4 hours could be on the plane. Then the rest of the time, you don't have to be inside of a meeting. That's your first day. The second day, you have 4 hours of meeting. Then the rest of the time, you do that on a Friday. Saturday and Sunday are off days because they're not working days. That's still covered. And then on Monday, you go back home 4 hours. So now you've turned a vacation into a meeting, but you've allowed the IRS to pay for it because you're deducting that. Airfare, hotels, food, only on the days that you have meetings. And if your spouse, your family, friends are part of your board, you may want to pay for their flights and everything as well. So meetings are a good thing.
Meetings are a good thing. That's interesting. That's very interesting. And so there's all kinds of things that you really can do. What are some of the things that people think they can do that they should not do?
You can't write off 100% of your clothes. I'm sorry. You just can't. People say, well, I needed this outfit for a business meeting. You need clothes. I'm sorry. You just need clothes. But if you're a creator and you have an outfit just for that photo shoot, then it could be a deduction. If you have clothing that's logoed with your branding, then it's a deduction. But you cannot deduct 100% of your clothes, 100% of your makeup. In fact, there was a case where there was a TV anchor, and she tried to deduct everything from her underwear to her clothing to her makeup, and they denied it because they said, only if you have a makeup artist that came in doing the set, then yes, that makeup artist is a deduction. A hair person that come in doing the set for specific filming, that's a deduction. But not just everyday maintenance. You're going to do that anyway. So watch out for the makeup, the hair, and the clothing. I see people trying to just deduct 100% of that. Just don't do it.
Got it. That's a great tip. Catrina, if people wanted to learn more about the do's and don'ts and follow you for what you're up to next, what's the best way to do that?
I am on all the socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Catrina Craft. So you can find me there. And I always give free tips. I have videos. And if you want any of my tips, just DM me on Instagram, strategy. And I'll be happy to share all of the goodies so that you are staying in compliance, you're maximizing the tax deductions, and you're impacting your bottom line.
Outstanding. I love it. And dear listener, we'll make sure to have all those links in the show notes below. So it's nice and easy to go and follow her. Hey, Catrina, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you, Amanda. I look forward to us doing some more things together.
I look forward to it too. And hey, dear listener, if you have anybody in your network who, I don't know, makes money and pays taxes, this might be a really good educational podcast to share with them. So grab the link and go ahead and send it to them on text message. And hey, before you go, make sure you grab the subscription link so that you can catch our next episodes very soon. And as always, make sure that if you are loving the show, you take a beat and you share a review. It helps new listeners to decide if they want to spend some time with us. And of course, as always, I really appreciate you spending time with us as well. And we'll be back for another episode very soon. Until then, make sure you do what matters.